Okay, let's do this. So this is about how to sell confidently from stage and video. And this is not actually usually what I speak on. I was talking to Robert and we were thinking, what do I do here? I've got a new book coming out. I got all these sorts of things happening. And number one marketing tip is always know your audience, right? And what are they trying to do? So I thought, let's have this conversation about how to sell from stage or video or masterclass or what have you, but not do the 1.0 version of that, because I think everyone here in the room and many watching have done the basics, right, of how to sell something, whether it's free or that. I'd like to take this deeper or even further and look at the nuance of what actually makes that sale go from, a few people to a lot more people than what everybody else is doing, and how to do it in, of course, a non-salesy way. So a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of the Awaken School. So we do a lot of training seminars. We love live experiences, and I know many of you are like into that. Before COVID, it was 80% of our business was live events, seminars, retreats. We do a lot around spirituality, personal development, presence. We're more in that category, but then we have our Awaken Business School because people want to know how we're doing it, particularly in the areas of more esoteric, not hard skills, that kind of thing. And we do really well with that as well. So that is me, and some credibility pieces, just so you know that I know what I'm talking about. And the clicker, I did not turn it off. There we go. I'm the best-selling author of a few books. I have my third book coming out called Unshakable Inner Peace, which is coming out next week for our internal group, and then it'll be a big launch next year. Powerful and Feminine was my first book, which started the art of feminine presence. That was the body of work that I'm most known for. We went around the world many, many times. We've had about 13,000 women go through that training. I've sold over 11 million from a physical stage, not videos. You add a lot of there, so I really understand how to get onto a stage and, again, not be salesy, not be weird, but do really, really well in that category. And not only am I the founder of the Awaken School, but we have just opened, about to open in how many weeks, Robert? 5 weeks we are opening. Which is called Casa Sagrada. It's an old historic church that we have renovated into a retreat space for events that are transformational and all of that. And Casa Sagrada is sacred house in Spanish. So we're really excited about that. And for the past 18 years, I've been speaking to build our business and have offered everything from free to 22,000 from a stage. To put some context, I'm not doing speaker sponsorships all the time. I'm not doing, lots of, what do you call them, the speaker summits. I don't do a ton of that. Most of it's small groups, medium groups, our own experiences. So, I'm looking to ramp that up a little more, but love speaking because it's fun, isn't it? Did you have fun with your talks?
Yes.
It's so fun, and it's just a way to connect. And my previous life was a musician, so I'm a singer-songwriter from way, way back. So it's kind of like any time you can get on a stage and feel like you can help someone or move someone, it's just totally awesome. Okay, so in this masterclass, you're going to learn the overall strategy of a presentation that leads to the client saying yes, best way to open the presentation that will invite people to be open to your offer right from the get-go, and better ways to seed and have your ideal client make a decision in a quick way. So this talk I've kind of given once before, and Marley, you might have heard it at eWomen, but I just was asked on this topic, and again, I'd not put this presentation together ever. I'm like, okay, well, what have I got to share? I've actually can do this pretty well. And it was inspired by one of my clients called Suze, who I'd been working with her for many years. She was in the art of feminine presence world and really wanted to get past the 6-figure quickly into the 7-figure range. She wanted to do events and all of that. So I worked with her for a few years. She did amazing. She's off, and I don't see her for a few years, right? Because that's hopefully what our clients do. They get successful and then they're off. But then she called me earlier this year and said, I've got this event coming up and you're the master. I need to know like how I'm gonna theme this and do the offer and all of these pieces. So we did a few hours and went through everything from, you know, the theme of the event to what her offer is, to how to seed, how to do all these things probably that you've learnt about before, how to tell people that there will be something at the end that you can do if you're interested. And I was like, you're good to go. It's going to be awesome. So she calls me the next week, or I reach out to her because I hadn't heard from her after her event. I'm like, oh, how did it go? And she said, it was terrible. Sales were the worst ever. And I kind of looked like Sarah. I was like, why? What happened? And we talked and I asked her a lot of questions and very quickly realized why none of what the 1.0 or 2.0 sales from stage worked, why it didn't work. I could see it. We hadn't talked about that part. So pop quiz, does anyone want to have a guess of why the offer was great and all the things, but hardly anyone bought when they really should have because she's awesome and the offer was great. Any ideas of why it tanked? Especially after working with me for hours and hours and we had it down. Well, this is why it was. She did not create a sales environment. So when I was looking at all the photos I said, can you send me photos? Can you send me like close-ups of even the people in there? You know, who were they? Was it the right audience? Yeah, it was the right audience. Da, da, da. We talked about it. Her event was very soon after her country opened up from COVID because she was in one of the countries that stayed closed for a gazillion years. And so people were just wanting to get out. They wanted to be entertained. And she had this glitzy, beautiful thing you walked past in the event and, you know, she looks sexy as anything. She's gorgeous and all this like paraphernalia around it. And you could see it's not a sales environment. It's an entertainment environment. It's an interesting environment. And all these ladies, because it was around feminine leadership, looked awesome, but they weren't ready to buy. They weren't in a place of, oh, I'm supposed to buy a $10,000 program at the end of today. So how do you make sure there is a sales environment? You've got to be really good at this because online, if you're doing a masterclass, summit, whatever, they're not in a sales environment. You've got to put them into that because they're in front of their computer and they don't care so much. So how do you do that? I have to do it a lot when I'm walking into, you know, maybe not so much with the women's business groups, but a lot of groups that I was doing, they weren't used to getting pitched. They weren't used to, it was kind of like a ladies' night. And there I come, and then I'm at the end giving order forms at the end, you know, sign up for my thing. And so what I had to realize in the beginning, that's why people weren't buying. It wasn't because I didn't have something of value. So then I put all of the focus on everything before the offer and got the sales environment right and created things. I'd walk in and be like, no one wants to buy here at all. And by the end, people would. One of the first times I did this, which I'll walk you through and maybe brainstorm some ideas for your next events. It was in Boulder, which is nearby, and I went to a women's group that said, you're not going to be able to pitch anything, don't bother, no one ever buys here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, let me just try, you know? And it wasn't an expensive thing, it was like a $9.97, but it was after only an hour and a half, and like half the room bought. And the woman's like, what the hell is going on here? Because she doesn't create a sales environment. So this is, thanks to Suze, a big reminder for all of us. It's not just about these lovely little things that we learn and then we do the thing at the end and then hopefully people buy at the back and all of that. So how to create a sales environment. We need less entertainment and more tension. So that is why Tom said to me, I missed the dramatic. He came to the back. Can I share what you said? And I didn't do enough dramatic pauses, he says. Right? I didn't feel. And my reaction is like, I don't need dramatic pauses because that's entertainment, less tension. If I'm going to buy from Tom, he needs to put me in a tense place of why I need the land of Tom desperately. Right? Another action talk. So go to that. It's a brilliant talk, right? And I come from Toastmasters. You know, I know a lot of the NSA people, and so we all have to be careful of not going into I'm going to be the great speaker, but be present, like Marla was saying, and to really feel the tension of where this person in the audience is and where they want to go. So how can you create more tension from where they are to where they want to be in the beginning of your speech? Not at the end where people, you know, that old school, you should do this, otherwise you're going to fail, and that, not that kind of tension at the end, but how do you bring it all through? So I wasn't meaning to do this before, but off camera, I did create tension. I asked you, what thing have you got coming up? You've got an event, you've got a masterclass. There is tension around that because you are here with the amount that you usually sell, and I'm presuming you would like to usually sell twice as much or 3 times as much as you usually do, or build a list if things are free. And so that would be an example of a way just to be like, okay, so where are you and where do you want to be? And it's got to be very conversational. People will see through, who here wants to be sexy, rich, and famous, you know, but you're not. And like those kinds of questions are very old school. They don't work anymore. People get the marketing language of speakers here. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like, okay, I get it. So we need to find new ways to get them into themselves of where they're trying to go, and less on you as the speaker. So if I see a lot of people smiling at me or like getting entertained by me, and I'm a singer and we do music at the event, so I've got to watch, like if they're loving us too much, I go, uh-oh, because I know that I'm creating an entertainment environment, not a sales environment. I mean, they need to like, know and trust you, but so how do we create more tension? Second is your physical position. So on a video, it might be a little more difficult. You've got less room to go, but you kind of want to be in that central power position. But if you're on a stage, the closer you can get to these people, the more tense they are going to feel and the more authority that you're going to be in. So I've been told for the cameras, I got to stay here, but I really want to be here because it creates that authority. Like, I really know what I'm doing and you need to do this and we can do this together and and all of that. So be very mindful of being front of stage, and a little bit wonky this, maybe that way. Here we go. And then inspiring a commitment and decision, because a sale is a commitment and decision, even if it's for a freebie. So how do you do that? You've got to set up the talk to do that, or the event to do that. So we'll go through some examples, but inspiring a commitment and decision might be me saying, by the end of our time together, I want you to make a decision of whether you want to rock this skill or not. You want to be okay with like 10%, 5% of people saying yes, or you want to go into the stratosphere of a lot of people are saying yes to it, right? And I think it's one skill that is worth continuing to work on, because I mean, like Philip said, everyone should be in sales. It's such the engine for the business. So I might say something like that, right? I'm inspiring a commitment and decision not to work with me, to make the decision that you want to be amazing on stage, great content, fit and continue to make that a priority, right? So how can you do that at every stage of that challenge or masterclass? Right? Insert that. So seeds. Seeding your offer, 1.0, I'll give you one example, maybe you can tell me ways you've learnt or what have you before, is, I'm going to teach you some things and we're going to do a lot of work together, but at the end, I will share a way that we could work together. Okay? Has everyone heard that kind of thing? It works, it's great. They can be in that mode of there's something else that they could do with you. But everyone's kind of heard it, right? We're like, yeah. What is another seed that you might use that basically is like, there is an offer at the end and you should be thinking about this? Does anyone have another example? One that you use? Or do we have a room of like, maybe I should be doing this more? That's fine.
And sometimes I'll say, when you work with me, you will get
yes,
blah, blah,
perfect.
Blah, instead of, yeah.
Perfect. So Miles saying, when you work with me, you will get this. Or a client, you might tell a client story. That's a seed that I am for hire. So all of those are great, and most people use them, so that's fine. So here's a few that I absolutely think needs to be in there. I'm calling it a making a decision seed, right? So it's somewhere in your talk or event, you've got to create an experience where they are making the decision to be the skill, the identity, the thing, Island B, and don't rush that. So one of the things in one of our events, our retreats, is their decision of are they going to be a hobbyist or a pro at their business, right? And so that is done over a period of time, so I don't have to rush it and get them very much in a decision of I'm going to be professional, because a lot of people think they're professional, but they're not really approaching their business like that. So that is different to me having some quick line with a dramatic pause at the end. Do you want to decide today to be professional, not a hobbyist? They'll all go, yes, and that's it. We want them to make a full-on, to-the-toes decision that they are doing that, which then makes the offer very easy versus if they haven't done that. So what is the decision? You can write this down. What is the decision that you know they have to make in every cell of their body? You don't have to have the whole room make the decision, because the whole room's not your ideal client. What would be that decision that you would want them to make? Another example in one of our other events is, are you going to leap to your next bold move? It's more on the personal development side. And there's a whole piece around that, right? What's your bold move, and are you going to do it? Because most of us are scared a lot to make that next bold move. But they make a decision before the offer, which the offer is to help them make the bold move. Right? Can someone throw out, what's the decision that you want them to make? Well, yours is your book title, Chad, isn't it? Yeah. They have to make a decision that it's a priority. And if you can't make fitness the priority during the podcast or during the masterclass, it doesn't matter how good the offer is at the end, they haven't made that decision. It's not a priority yet. And then it dovetails back into the tension. They have to have a lot of tension in that podcast interview with you to be like, oh, I need to move, I need to move, right? So making a decision seed, it could be short, could be long, but have it baked in to your presentation. You know, when in a presentation you say like an opening, closing, and 3 points, or 4 points plan, then one of those could be the making a decision seed, right? And then be like, well, I'm supposed to be giving them content. I'm supposed to be giving them help. But that is probably more help than any content that they can get, because they have to make a decision if they're going to actually do something huge. And everyone here is trying to help someone do something massive, not something small, something really big, a big change in their life. So that's the first kind of seed. The second kind of seed is your system seed. And I think this group, because you are at a higher level than a lot of beginner business owners, this might come more naturally. And your system seed is going through what the actual system is to get there. Right? So not just the 3 steps, but there is a system that is being proven, that has been working, and you'll walk them through what that system is so they can get a sense of it. Because you want to kind of get a better sense of what I might be buying at the end before that. Okay? So the system might be, I'm going to get the PLAN from Tom's blueprint, but maybe a little bit more of the system of me working with you. And how can I then take that and put it into the actual talk so it doesn't feel like I'm just selling, but I'm going through that because they need to understand that. Maybe just precursing it with, I want to go through my system that I work with the clients, because whether you work with me or someone else, you're going to need to know this. Does that sound fair? Right? And so I could do that for speaking to Sal. If I had a system, we're going to work on the offer. We need to work on, probably in this room, getting your offer 3 to 10 times higher in price point. Then coming back and figuring out, okay, that's there, how do we do this? And then at the end, I need to see you on stage or see you on a video. So the presence that Marla was talking, great action talk by Marla Press, is the presence so it comes through energetically and people are very drawn and they're listening versus watching a TV screen kind of thing, because it's not so much the words as the energy. I'm making this up. I don't have a program like this, but it's like I'm taking them through that. We used to have the Awaken School speaker training. So that's your system seed. And how much is it worth to you to solve the problem seed, right? So that is the question for those of you that are in sales. There is a point in a conversation where the person really needs to understand and admit what the cost of this problem is. And with health, it is a massive cost. It is massive amounts of money if they lose their health and if they, hurt their back or what have you. And so that's also part of the tension. It's also part of the, where they're wanting to go. But can you have a part of your talk that is this, not just one sentence, what is it worth to you to have great health? We all go, oh, a lot, but it doesn't really land. It's not moving the offer forward. So how much would it be worth to solve the problem? If I was a fitness person, okay, so we could go down 2 roads here. We can go down the road of 50, 60, 70 years old, 80 years old, into your 90s, and your core strength is intact. Or you can go down the track of 50, 60, 70, and your core strength is getting worse and worse and worse. Right? How much would it be worth to you to have the first track? And that be easy, enjoyable, impactful to your confidence as well, versus the likelihood of a fall earlier on than most? There, what would that be worth to you? Just throw out a number. To make it fun as well, right? And enjoyable. Just throw out a number. Anyone? How much would that be worth to you? $100,000. Yeah. I would say that. I pay, I thankfully do a trade with that, but it's $20,000 if I'm really going to keep that strength as I'm aging. See how I'm doing it? Now they're like, people will say $20,000 a year, which is why my client who I was talking about charges $25,000 for her package. So we need to get your prices up. Yeah. But it's all in the positioning, and it's all in people understanding how important it is, and moving more people into that. So has everyone got an idea of how you might bring that into the speech? And does anyone fear that if I do all these, I put this in my speech, people are going to think it's just one big sale? Or can you see how this could be content? Question?
So you talk about how much is it worth it to solve the problem. Do you talk about what is it costing you to not solve it, or just the positive?
Either way. Either way. I just want kind of that number, or that the cost doesn't have to be the amount, but it's good to put a dollar figure on it. And everyone here in this room should put a dollar figure on it. But yeah, it could be in the positive or it could be in the negative, however. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep moving and grooving, positioning the offer. So when you think of the last time you bought from someone and high ticket, do you remember saying to yourself before the offer came, I already know I want to work with them. I just hope the price is right. Right? That's usually how I am. Like I'm making the decision prior to the offer, which is great news for people like me and maybe like you who don't want to feel like they've got to land the offer correctly, otherwise no one's going to buy. I don't want that pressure. And I used to have that pressure. I would do a 3-day sales event like everybody does, and I get to the offer and be like, oh my God, if this moment goes wrong, the whole event goes wrong. And it just wiped me out. Didn't want that. Now that's the easiest part of it, because everything else is created for them to know prior to the offer that they're just hoping they can afford me, right? And then I call it get the cat out of the bag. That's what I call my offer now. It's like, it's all just get the cat out of the bag, and anyone's going to choose. Do they want it? Do they not? Doesn't matter. There's always going to be people in there that do. So just to kind of lighten the nerves around it. So we need to position the offer from the beginning, right? The whole thing starts from the beginning. So the entire speech is the offer. Now, how are you thinking that? How much are you thinking that when you give a talk? From 1, like, oh my God, I'm definitely thinking speech and offer would be like 1 out of 10. 10 out of 10 is where I am now. Like, everything's strategic. Because the moment I walk in here, I'm in an offer, right? But the moment I walk in here, do I want to be the person who's like trying to offer things to people? No, that's like ugly. But it's strategic, and what is that? So, and that was just not I'm a Toastmaster for 4 years. This is not my thing, right? I had to learn it and move into it. But I'd love for you to think, okay, the beginning, everything, the story's your offer, the content in the middle is your offer, and there has to be a transition from your main body into your offer. That transition, which usually takes a few minutes, is very important energetically, because your offer is creating an environment for them to make a decision. So I've got to put them into a really good, healthy place, not a shamey place, for them to be able to make a good decision for themselves. And a lot of people don't do that. They just go from here and, okay, now I've got something to sell. Or they might share a story, which is great, and then there's something to sell. Versus like, let's just take a few deep breaths here, because we've made the pact that we want to become, fit, and we want to go down path 1. And I'd like to say that's really easy, but if it was, everyone would be doing it. And so I'm going to ask you to really step into this, and it might scare you a bit. So can we take a few deep breaths? right? Like something to allow them to be in a present place while you're now going through the offer. Transition needs to be very slow. Slow down, get them back into their body, into their heart, into what they need and want, and make sure that transition is working. So let's start with the opening, because probably from that slide you're like, well, how does all that work? So from the opening, I started today with a credibility slide. And I used to start with a story or, a little bit of some marketing language, the urgent wants, the things that they might have, and straight into a story. What I'm realizing in the speaking to sell world or podcast world or what have you, people really want to know very quickly, do you know what you're talking about? And they're trying to figure it out through a story often, right? It's like the great story and it's interesting and the woe to win. But the whole time, from a psychological standpoint, people are listening to you going, but it's a great story, but do I really need to be listening to them? Do they know what they're talking about? Does that make sense when you're sitting in the audience? So I have changed it around to do more boring credibility and then follow it with the story. You could start with a story if you're a great storyteller, right? And then come back with as many credibility points as fast as possible. Because I could tell you a great story about selling from stage or what have you, and being uncomfortable and now it's great. But there is no story I could tell that's going to be better than I've sold $11 million from stage. And then there's the whole video thing. It just goes like, okay, I can breathe and listen to this person because they might have a tip or two. So can you get your credibility slide, and with a podcast it wouldn't be a PowerPoint, but get that as strong as you possibly can. Think about, what have you done that might jolt them? Like when you shared, Tom, about Market Vault, was it Market Vault? Like that adds to your credibility. It's like you started a CRM system and you sold a CRM system. It's like, he must know about marketing and business. So get this better every 6 months. Get it better and better and better and better, because people will be right there. And already, if you've got a good credibility slide, they're like, well, what have they got that they, how can I work with this person? Then I went to what you will learn, which I think everyone did a great job here, or Robert, because he's looking at a lot of the action talks they're sharing in the early stages. This is the hook. Here's the 3 questions. Here's the 4 steps. So I want to give some things that are like, okay, I'm going to learn something, because if it's all sales and story and all of that, again, we don't really get what we're here for. So I gave you some pieces there. And then I didn't do this, but here's what I would do next. And this could be, again, a retreat is just an elongated signature speech, right? A podcast is just a signature speech, and no one knows it's really a speech that you wrote, right? It's more of an interview. Is why this is important now. Because this points to urgency. If you don't have urgency in the room, so everyone could choose path number 2 for their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, nice core muscles, looking great, feeling great, but they don't need it tomorrow. They're like, that's a great thing, Chad, but I'll wait till another 6 months because I'm so busy coming up. And right, you're nodding like that. You get that sometimes from people. It's like, yes, I will, but not now. So you need to make it, we all get it, we all get that, right? It's probably the number one, like, we haven't established urgency. So you have to establish urgency, but you can't be pushy, you can't be salesy, you can't be this. So I'd also bake this into the opening and point out why it's urgent. So I was thinking about this when I did the talk a little bit ago. I was like, well, why I'm talking to a group of women at the time who are all there to be great speakers, but they don't really understand yet, or it hasn't landed in their body how to sell really well from stage. So I came up with, you're most likely nowhere close to your earning potential, right? Which that's this room. Can we all agree you're nowhere close to your earning potential? Yes, yes, right. I'm not. Robert, are you close to your earning potential? No. So there is somewhere to go, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about that, because for business owners, at least the women I was talking to, that's urgent. They would like money tomorrow, not in 6 months. The next one I came up with is you're not making the impact that you want to make, or you're nowhere near the amount of impact that you could make. And that is so critical with sales, because we know the speech is great. It's a nice thing, but it's really when they work with you that's where the transformation happens. It doesn't happen in the speech. So we need to get it out from the speech or out from the workshop and into longer term work with you guys. And so that might be that. And then the third one is you need to find an authentic and enjoyable way to sell your programs and services, right? Because there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. But you, and this group was like, we want to do it through speaking, because, or live events, retreats, workshops, because that beats a lot of one-to-ones or, I don't know, Facebook ad videos. You've got to land perfectly for people to click on, So this is a really good, and what I feel is an enjoyable and authentic way, because you can just be yourself. Get out of the Toastmaster world, right? That was good. That was good for a while, wasn't it, Marla? But then we got to shake off the perfection of, this is how I do it. I can just be real. So there's other reasons why you might want to learn this skill now, not in 6 months. And that would be my job as the speaker, if I was selling that, to get you going I can't put this off anymore. So what would be one way that you don't currently say in your speech prior to your offer that would say, this is why this is urgent, not next year, this year? What would you say? Does anyone want to throw out an idea?
I already make the point that most people are living for a life they will never allow themselves to have.
Yeah. So I'll say that again, because so that they're not allowing themselves to live the life.
That most people are living for a life they'll never allow themselves to have. So the purpose of their living today is for a life they're telling themselves they're going to have. They're never going to allow themselves to have it.
Got it. So they're here on Island A, they're struggling, and they're not allowing themselves to have that.
And they never will.
And they never will. So what creates the urgency of me going, today's the day that I'm going to allow myself? Because that's setting up the thing, but it's not making me urgently go, I need to work with you. So what comes next?
Yeah, the next is that until you change your identity, your structure, you're always going to be on that hamster wheel going nowhere. And then the question is this the time that you're going to start creating the life you want to live instead of living for a life you'll never have?
Yes. So you feel that it's starting to get a little more urgency. How could you make it even more urgent? Today, not next week. You're definitely going in the, yep.
Yeah. The tension really comes.
And this is being picked up, isn't it? Slightly?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, great.
The tension really builds to create that tendency to movement, resolution. The tension really happens when they realize that they haven't actually chosen. So is today the day you make a choice?
A choice to be in that life.
For whatever choice they want.
Yes.
So instead of living for it, you choose it today.
Yes. Then how would you make it even more urgent? Now I'm playing with it, but
But this is wonderful, because that's the point where I usually go. making it more urgent. I mean, I love the potential, but even that isn't, to me, potential is a future thing. A today thing, to make it more urgent. I'm just feeling for where
exactly. And I'll clarify too. The urgency is working with Dixie. How do I make working with Dixie urgent in this wanting to go to the real life that I want to live?
Yeah, the urgency to actually start the work is that when you start working with someone who can hold you in your highest power, you start working with someone who can hold that vision. One of my little taglines is visionary to the visionaries. Somebody who can not only hold your vision with you, but hold the vision of you as your powerful truth. Then you can make a choice. You can create whatever you choose, and you can live in that life today instead of putting it off to a future you're never going to have.
Right, right. Then how do you make it more urgent? Like they have to move and pay her now. Because can you feel like this is great? She's been doing this, right? And there's still a like, I could wait. This sounds great. This sounds lovely. But I don't want to pay the thousands of dollars. And so it's different for everyone. But the process could be like through writing. Sometimes we get ideas. Like if I had to make it more urgent, I had to make it more tense. I had to be like today. I'll give you an example, and I'm not saying to say this, but I'll just give you an example. Being in this environment, in your retreat, right? Being in this environment makes you feel like you can do more than you currently did. Does everyone feel that from this talk potentially? You can imagine Dixie's women feeling this. You come and you're like, I can do this. I can rock this podcast. I'm going to sell more on my masterclass. That's great. But when you leave the room, that level of belief plummets really fast. Does that ever happen? Like you just, how, what? So we have a big issue here. That if you don't make a decision to do something, learn something, get coached around this before you leave the door, it's going to come down. And then we're going to have to like get it up again. And then when you, going to what Dixie was saying, I love that, not moving into the life, that not allowing themselves to go into the life that they want. When you don't do that, the cost, the urgency is every day you lose self-esteem, you lose the self-confidence if you don't have someone that's helping you do that. Otherwise you would have already done it before, right? So I know for a lot of our women, they're drinking a couple of glasses of wine a night. They're eating way too much. They are filling the void with other things because they're not giving themselves the permission to live the life that they really do. And they want to stop those things. They don't want to do that anymore. So now, like layering on some ideas where you've got to be very honest with your group, and you've also got to be very honoring with your group, right? You've got to get your group to tell the truth to yourself. Because everyone here, I don't know about the content creators, you could tell me, Tom, but I know with fitness, with speaking and being present and showing themselves on a stage and the work that you're doing around their dream life and creating that, these are very intimate subjects, right? No one wants to be like talking about how they're struggling. And you on the stage or on the video has got to get them talking about this versus wonderful, lovely words that sound good, and you'd think they would create urgency, but they actually don't create the urgency. So think of, what are they doing? What are they doing that but at the end of your retreat, if they don't work with you, they're going to keep doing it, right? And then ask the question, is that what's going to happen?
I think with in my case, the first two bullets really resonated. with content creators, especially people who feel like they are the experts in their field,
Yes.
they ought to be the go-to person.
Yes.
The second thing is something I do, something I did when Robert interviewed me. I told a story about somebody who was celebrating, I'm making a bigger impact.
Yes.
And so that one I've
Yes.
already got, and I work into stuff that I do. The first one, not so much. And what I know, but I rarely say, is it gnaws at experts when they see somebody else out there being the one
Right.
getting noticed,
Absolutely.
the one being celebrated, and they're thinking, I deserve this.
Absolutely.
And so that's already inspired me to work that in. The third one.
Can I just add one more way to add some urgency to that? Is so Tom's saying something that they would go, yes, yes, yes. Like Dixie's saying the life, and they're all going, yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to turn it to them with a question or a statement to have them tell the honest truth about it. So if you're saying, are you sick of seeing everybody else, who's not on the amount of wisdom and expertise that you are, and they're making more money than you, they're making more income, and that's a pain in the ass, then are you willing to change that? Or are you just wanting to make that excuse? You want to do another week, another month, and then like, okay, I've heard Tom 3 times now. Now's the time I need to talk to him because I don't want it to go. So just always add that piece at the end. That's really, I'm hoping this is coming from, I'm not trying to manipulate people into saying yes to something they don't need, don't want. But when they know it, and it's just because there's not the urgency there, we have to be able to say, this speech is not about me, it is about you. This is not about me and my lovely words, it's about you. And that will get them to do that. So there's the second idea you had?
Yeah, so authenticity and so forth, and urgency. I'm beginning to work toward this, and that's AI. And so for content creators, there's this drive to, on one hand, just use the easy button, that's enough.
Yes.
But I think the people I work with understand that no, it's not enough. If I'm going to stand out and be authentic, and
Exactly.
exactly. And so the question for them is: are you going to allow this flood of robot-generated content capture the attention of all of those people who deserve to hear from you?
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then you do the same as I was saying with Dixie. Then what else?
Right.
And I just take it as a mind experiment.
Yeah.
And to make it like now, not next week. And 1.0, is in your offer, you get a discount, you get a bonus. The people don't really care. That's just a logical thing at the end.
So I have a question about this whole framework, and that is, a lot of people will coach that in your presentation you have to subtly answer the objections without presenting as if you're answering objections.
Yes,
And
yes.
it feels like this is sort of where that happens.
I would do that in the content piece. So, this is really the opening. I mean, I'm just still in my first 5 minutes of my speech where I really want to get that urgency out immediately. But if I go and I'm like, two more minutes I have, see, this is what I do. I'm like, give me 6 hours, not 60 minutes. This is for you. That's, again, just in the opening, right? Get clear on who that is. That's why Robert asked the question in all the action interviews, who's your ideal client. So make sure, that's there.
Rich,
Yes.
take more time. It's fine. You can have more time.
Well, you can tell me when to stop when I get to boring. I'll take, 5 more minutes? So I've got this is for you, making sure that they're clear. And I like doing a disclaimer of some sort. I wouldn't necessarily do this in a podcast or a short thing, but if I'm selling something that is higher price, like a $2,000 or more, or I don't want people who are just looking for the easy fix. I would say things like, I'm not saying that you can hardly do anything and get, be paid well. I'm not saying my results of building a multi-7-figure business isn't remotely typical. I'm like, this is just to make them be like, I'm not this thing that's gonna, help everything in the, and it really adds credibility, right? I'm not just trying to make everyone think it's as easy as that, because it's not. And then I might go into my story at that point, because I've got some urgency, now I've got the credibility, now I've got those things. And I might say something like, and I usually don't say this, but just as an example, if you've ever tried to make the leap into, I'm thinking of you, Chad, with our conversation and your $24,000 offer that you're going to put together, is if you've ever tried to make the leap from doing something that most people don't get paid a lot of money for, it's like massage or it's personal training, and you want to make a lot more money, a lot more impact, be high end, but it's a bit scary. I know what it feels like, right? It's kind of like, then I'm connecting with that. And I totally know what that feels like, because I was making $350 a month for 2 years of living in this country, trying to start a coaching business. So I know the many, many years of prior to having a clue. And Robert sort of knew me in that moment, in that time. And then I had to learn and practice and learn and practice and get trainings and all that. So then I would go into, I know how you feel. We might have more in common than you think. So then I'm into the story. I won't go into that, but your personal story needs to show them that there is a gap, right? That's another seed. So I'm going to show them, there was a gap from my understanding of all of this, and now there isn't. And that's seeding that if you would like me to help you close the gap, I can do that. And then your training content also shows them that there is a gap. So you can't just go into the content. We've got to take each piece of content, and that goes back to what Tom's talking about, of answering objections. So that could be, what's one of the biggest objections that you get when you're trying to...
I have too many programs already.
Too many programs already. So that would be an objection that she can answer. And we also want to show where the gap is of what's happening. So if someone was saying up in the audience, or in the chat on a challenge, I mean, too many programs already, I might say, well, tell me, if you're still struggling with this, what are these other programs not giving you? And that's not like poo-pooing a program. There's just lots of different things that you need to make work. Oh, it's not this. Great, that's why this. Or you're here and we've all gone through many programs. Is there anyone in multiple programs right now? Anyone? Right? I'm usually in multiple programs because I got to learn a ton of stuff and get good really fast. And so that's like taking the shame off that, because sometimes there's a bit of a shame, or like I don't know, I just feel that. So you would answer those in the training content, but keep showing them that they're here and they want to go there. And then testimonial success stories can be waved through there. I think you all know that. And then the transition to the offer needs to justify the investment. So we talked earlier that this transition needs to slow down. You need to give them time to breathe because they're about to make a decision. But the words need to justify the investment. So I have a freebie offer that I will do in a moment when the cameras are off. But I'll do a little transition. I have no plan of what this transition will be, but I know what I'm trying to get to. I know what a transition is supposed to be, but it's really about justifying the investment for that. And it might be a time when it's a freebie, or money when it's not. Q&A, I will hang around if anyone wants to ask me a question. That would be fine. I'd be happy to help if there's something specific about something that's coming up. To give you a couple of nuggets, some new things, tweaks for your upcoming speech?
Yes.
Good, 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 good. Well, thank you so much for having me, Actionera. You guys are awesome, and rock it on the stage.
Yeah.